Welcome back. It is Monday, and you know what that means Monday motivation. But today, once again, we're going to change the narrative. That is the new segment on top of Monday motivation. And the last time we did change the narrative, we had Miss Lena from the south side of Chicago, from the Shy, come through and bless us with some gems about archery. Just a sport that both her and I love deeply to our core. And I mentioned in a few different videos and some different segments that river rafting is just my jam. I have a picture right above me there. If you could see on the bottom, it says going outside to heal inside, because I do believe river rafting heals me in different ways. So I was like, hey, I need to do a segment around river rafting and changing the narrative and bringing someone who I just want to appreciate as a friend, also as someone who loves the outdoors in a mutual way as me. We both have that same endearment for the outdoors, even though we are coming from a different demographic, right? Both of us, as brown men, enjoy river rafting. Now, this person does way more activities than I do. But the great thing about changing the narrative, it's all about bringing people and different ideas, creative spirits, individuals who are doing different things that they say we don't do or we don't normally do. And as opposed to saying, yeah, I know someone who does that, and that's just where the conversation goes and it drifts away, I think it's important to bring those individuals to the forefront. Beyond that, I think it's important to have messages. All my platforms are always going to have a message. Sometimes you might have to sift through it, y'all, but it does have a message. But just as important as messages are, I think the messenger is just as important. And as I bring these different people in to speak about changing the narrative, I think it's really easy to take in a 45-second clip or short that I create for the masses to streamline some of the material or information and just be like, yeah, that was okay. I think in order to really take in changing the narrative and all the segments I deliver, I'm always going to deliver shorts. But I think to really get the message, you really got to check out the videos. You really got to hear it from beginning to end. Understand why it ticks for that person to do this sport activity thing that they do that maybe none of their family members did, that they're changing that cycle to do something new. So in saying that, Sam has impacted me. Sam Pratico is my guest for this weekend, or for this weekend, excuse me, for this segment. Look at me, I'm already heading towards the weekend and it's Monday, y'all. But Sam has a pure love for outdoor sports. A Florida boy, but came to Colorado and just discovered a whole new world of different activities that really resonate with his spirit. So the segment today is all about river rafting. I hope you love it. Next Monday, we'll be coming back with another segment, but this segment is all about river rafting. So I want to welcome Mr. Sam Pratico to the room, to the building, to speak on the wonderful sport of river rafting. I mentioned in a few segments how much I love river rafting, and I'm gonna keep trumpeting that horn because I truly do. And it took for me to come to Colorado to connect to that. So, Sam, if you want to come to the room, I'm gonna give you that nice welcome camp clap. Thank you for coming through and joining us on changing the narrative. And thank you for just sharing your expertise about river rafting. And Sam's going to be very humble because he'll always say, like, I just started this a couple years ago. But Sam is a guide, y'all. He's beyond just doing it as just an individual person or with a group as a hobby. He actually does it. So don't let his humility fool you. So, Sam, you know the topic. The topic is river rafting. I know you have a fond and deep love for it. So, if you want to just kind of share with the people how you connected with river rafting, the why, the when, maybe a little bit of just about your story in river rafting, I would truly appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. Thanks, Mr. Adam. I really appreciate it. Oh, just thinking about the water in general. As you already know, I'm from Florida, so I'm surrounded by the water on all sides. But that's actually kind of how it started a little bit, right? Like going out on the rivers, just doing a little bit canoeing, a little bit kayaking, luckily enough, being in school and with a program that actually allowed us to go on these trips and have overnight trips. But in Florida, a lot of the rivers we have, they're super flat. So for me, for the longest time, I was like, water sports aren't really my thing. I don't know. But coming out to Colorado about 6 years ago, I was like, okay, this is a little bit different. Mountain water's different. They actually got creeks that flow and actually seeing whitewater for the first time. So, in terms of rafting and whitewater, I was just surrounded by a lot of people that were part of the outdoors. So I was like, okay, I'll try out a bunch of these different sports, rock climbing, backpacking, and then paddle sports were some of it. So getting into supping, because I'd never done stand-up paddleboarding before. I was like, this is weird, this is different. But just having fun with it, playing with it, doing some like backflips off the paddleboard, seeing just like, oh, okay, even though we're in a flat water, nice and calm, this is still a lot of fun.
Mm.
But in terms of you talking about my guide life, I actually I was working just a normal full-time job in a warehouse, and I was starting to get a little bit tired of it. So my winter season ended, and I had to figure out what was I gonna do for the summer. Because I wanted a little break from summer camp, right? I wanted to get into a little bit more extreme, and that's the big thing about whitewater. Oh my goodness, the adrenaline that you get getting out there. Like I
Mm.
remember during our training, we did like a week-long training where the first 3-ish days were a camping trip over on like the upper Colorado Sea. So just getting used to what the basics are in terms of the physicality of it. Because I knew it was going to be
Mm.
rough on my body. And like my thing growing up was making sure that I was in enough shape that I could do the outdoor activities I wanted. Now I'm just like, yeah, it's good for me, but I want to be able to go out there and again live the Colorado lifestyle that everyone else does up in the mountains. So I remember our first day out, one of our tasks we had to do was we had to pull ourselves back into the boat. That was that was a real hard day. I didn't know if I was going to be able to do it. I needed to take a break. Everyone was talking about all just like the crazy noises I was making just so I could get myself back in. So day one, we're out there, pulled right into it. And it was rough. Again, there's only three of us in my rookie class, so only three of us training out there. So for me being one of the only ones that couldn't get on that first day, I was felt a little disheartened. I didn't know if it was gonna be the thing that I was cut out to do, but we went back out, went for another day, did a bunch of other skills, and we practiced getting back into the boat. And just learning from day one of it was really just the technique. I didn't have to muscle it all, right?
Yeah.
Biggest thing when we show people how to get back into the boat is you want to dunk yourself and then use that PFD you've got to just pop you out of the water.
Mm.
So, being a little guy like myself, a lot of people have a lot of doubt in my abilities. So, being able to accomplish something like that, I was like, all right, I can take care of this. And then going into learning stuff like, what do you got to do when that boat flips over?
Mm.
And that would scare. We talk about one of our goals as raft guides is if you could do a dry flip. So flipping that boat over without getting wet. That one still in the works, right? We still got things that we're working on. But for me, that's something that's just another fun thing I could do in my free time. But uh being able to say after, like you were saying, it's only been 2, 3 seasons for me playing on the water. Um, to say that I've been able to guide class 5 rapids, uh, it's a really wild place to be. But also knowing what it's like to be the guide that's in charge of everyone and making sure that they're safe and having a good time, that's a whole other level of I gotta switch my personality from, all right, y'all, we're having a good time. All right, everyone's still good. Y'all getting ready for what we got up next? Because what we just did, that's just we're just splashing in the water. Now is where we're going to be putting in the hard work, right?
Mm.
Getting everyone prepped for it so they know what exactly is in sight for us and telling them right out the bat too, like this is what the plan's going to be. You're going to hear me call 3 commands. I need them as soon as I'm asked, right?
Mm.
Because going through those rapids, you're only going through for maybe like a few seconds. It goes by, you don't even know what happened.
Yeah.
But to feel the difference of someone who is you're trusting someone to take you out versus being in that seat and taking people out is so different, so wild. No, that's your boat. And I have a sense of pride in that, honestly. Like I love taking people out, having a good time. Also, it's a lot of learn by doing. That's how I ended
Mhm.
up learning a lot. There's stuff like scouting out the different rapids, right? So you want to pull over, see what the line actually looks like, as well as talking to other people that might be there. Because one big
Mhm.
thing that we always talk about is everyone's a friend on the river, right? If someone falls in the water, it's that closest boat, whoever's around, everyone's gonna have eyes on that person. And that's
Mhm.
like one of the big things about rafting is it's fun to go out with a group of people. Oh, the crazy things that some of us have done. Like I've never cliff jumping was never one of my things. I'm not like a big heights person. Falling is super scary for me. But going out on this trip and knowing like it was back over at the upper Colorado again, and they have like there's a 10-foot cliff and then they've got the like 20-foot cliff. I was actually on a rafting trip with a school. And then part of why I was with that school is because of my background again of like knowing that there's someone there that understands the safety but
Mhm.
not having to be the actual guide for the trip, which was super nice. But getting to be there, making sure the kids felt okay, making sure that even the educators themselves felt okay, right? But because the kids weren't allowed to do this cliff jump, they were all super excited. They're like, we want to see all of y'all adults do it. So one of my things, I ended up doing it, and it's such a strange sensation when you've got that PFD on too because I always think about, oh, I'm just gonna sink, I'm gonna fall, I'm not gonna be make it back up. But because you
Yeah.
got that PFD on, you're just going straight to the surface. It's a lot of I've been taught how to be calm in such stressful situations. So like for me, cliff diving, a little bit stressful. Guiding a boat for the first time, super stressful. But after you do the runs over and over and over, you already know what it's like. But I tell people all the time, every run is never the same. The water levels here in Colorado like to change all throughout the day, whether it's we're starting to get some new snow or trying to get some new rain that's coming down, or it's a super
Mhm.
hot day, so all the snow's melting.
Yeah.
Like I think this past summer was I spent a lot of time on the beginner section of our creek, so only like class two, class three rapids. This past season was the highest water level I've ever guided on it, and it was
Mhm.
about 800 CFS. So
Okay.
that move that creek was moving, and I'd never felt it like that before. But knowing that I still knew exactly how the creek ran, just knowing of like, all
Mhm.
right, we need a little bit more muscle power. We got to be a little bit more on top of those commands. Straight up putting not necessarily that fear, but that urgency into it, because that's the biggest thing is you have to stay alert. But
For
outside
sure.
of that, all fun and games.
Well, you said a lot because I think Florida boy, growing up near water, so water was all around you. But obviously, there was different sports that you weren't doing, right? Like you weren't doing some sports. You come to Colorado, get put on to different things, um, and then obviously Sam has a big camp background as well. That's how I met Sam through camp, through the camp roots, which I always talk about. And I think the beautiful thing, and you mentioned different parts of it, the different excitements you receive as a person who does it just on your own, but also the ups and downs of a guide, right? And what a guide goes through. And, I've never been a guide, and I don't think I ever will be a guide. I like to stay more in the position of the person who's being guided, right? Because it just allows me to just focus on my one job and doing that one job. But I wanted to touch a little bit, and maybe you feel this as well. The different times that I've done river rafting and the experience I went through. There's right the adrenaline part where you're just pumping and you're going, and then there's the boring parts where you're just kind of like floating and waiting. But then there's the spiritual parts. And I know when I went through the Colorado River and I did it on there, man, it just really between the stillness of the water at times, the animals that are around us that all feed off of the river, the connection of everybody in the raft, right? There's just this spiritual part for me, speaking of me, right, Sam, that I feel like even anchors me more to the sport, right? Beyond the connection and the collective of everybody paddling at the same time, listening to the guide, right? Love that part. There was a part where me and my crew, Rich Dog and Jay Trey, were about to hit, and the guide tells us, "All right, one of y'all gonna dump in the water," and we all looked at each other like it's not gonna be me, and we conquered that thing. Didn't get, we didn't fall in the water, which was great. But I remember, like, once we got to flatter parts where we could celebrate, this big yell came out of all of us. Like, we didn't really say nothing. We didn't say shit. I think it was just like a big, like, like we conquered it, right? But I remember this spiritual connection between the land, the animals, the water, my two best friends, right? We're getting older in age and we're doing this and we conquered that thing that the guide was like, one of y'all gonna fall out. Right? He was pretty honest too. And we're like thankful because it motivated us to not fall out, right? So in saying that, do you have that same kind of spiritual connection to it? Do you feel that same kind of vibe to it?
Oh, absolutely. That's like one of the big things, again, coming out here and connecting with nature, especially on like those float trips that you talk about. Like there's those flat parts where it can be kind of boring. You're just floating, you're waiting for the next thing, but it's taking in everything around you and the fact that we're so lucky to be in an environment where the land meets the seas. I've got these cliff walls next to me that I can just float through and just remember that I'm just a small little entity in this world, but I'm living the best life I can, right? Like every time I go through Clear Creek Canyon and I see the walls up, I'm like, this this is a wild place to be. But it just like you talked about, pretty humble person, a lot of those outdoor experiences, especially out on the water, they humble you real quick, right? So I'm never trying to be on the top of Mount Know-it-all, because I've heard that all the experts are dead. So
Uh-huh. Hmm.
as long as I'm staying in that space, again, knowing of like, I always want to go out and have respect for the land around me because I'm just one that's living in it. All right. Like, if I don't know what I'm doing or I'm not aware of what's going on around me, I,
Yeah,
I'm going to lose any sense of what's going on and what's around, as well as I like being outside. There's a different feeling versus being inside all the time and not getting those same rays, but even just like, again, all the animals and the different sounds you get to hear and the sensations, a lot of the sensation real, right? That's again having respect for the ecosystem you're around. Like this water doesn't care about you. It's gonna sweep you off your feet and you don't even realize it. Right. So
that's
again,
right.
it's being aware of the power that is around you. And honestly, soak it in, knowing of like I exist with this in harmony, right? Like it's not going to take me down because I'm trying to work with it and not against it. And that's like one
That's
of the
right.
big things about river rafting I've learned is you don't want to fight. You don't want to fight the water. Go
It's
with the
gonna win.
flow. Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
the water's gonna win all the time. I'm glad that you obviously. I didn't want to assume that you have that spiritual connection as well. I know it's in abundance. I felt it in other people who float by. And it just speaks to river rafting being such a community thing, right? It really is. It's community on the water in so many ways. And it's a moving community, which also speaks to power, right? It's the community moving with the current. There's so much symbolism to it. I can just like chop up. I think the thing about it, right? This segment is called changing the narrative, right, Sam? And part of it is to spotlight our people who look like you and I, our black and brown folks who are doing things that normally they say we don't do, right? And I know that you and I are both proud brown men in our own right, and we both love outdoors. And I think that's what our spirits are connected in that way, beyond just our friendship. There's a spiritual connection with the outdoors. And I think that dates back to our ancestors that is just naturally residing in us and coming out of us naturally. In saying that, you and I know that river rafting it's not cheap by far. And, for the Who's Helping You Heal movement, in August, we're planning a river rafting trip with Mr. Sam. It's going to be a 2-dayer, and it's all going to be about who's helping you heal and changing the narrative. And we're going to spotlight this, Sam and I, via videos. But why I'm saying all this is that, you know, river rafting is one of those things that I feel a lot of our people should do, even if they just try it once. And there's always these different theories. The cost, it's too much. I don't swim. I don't know how to swim. I've never swim. So why would I put myself in a boat that's going to dump me, right? The common things that come out. The third one, like black and brown folks don't do that. So why would I put my ass in a boat like that, Adam? That you challenging me differently, Adam. These are the things that I hear that I feel like, I'm big about ending those cycles, right? When I ran camp for so many years, I would say 90% of my campers didn't know how to swim. So my swimming area was such a vital component of my cultivation of my program because I wanted to end that cycle, right? I wanted to teach those campers how to swim so when they become adults, they teach their children, right? And there's no more we don't know how to swim, right? So in saying that, we're getting to the end of this segment. And I feel like me and you could talk for an hour about river rafting easily because there's so many questions. But right, there's how do our folks get into it, right? So our folks, and then in general, just people, but our folks specifically, and then the other parts, the things I mentioned to you, maybe the fears that our people have in partaking. And right, it's like when someone has a fear of eating something, but the shit is delicious. And they spend years not eating it. And then they eat it later in life. And they're like, damn, I should have ate that a long time ago, right? Right? They missed out in this space because their brain is saying no, right? Their automatic safety sensors are like, hell no. How do we convince our folks to come on over? Come join me and Mr. Sam on the water to do some river rafting, right? Stay over, go through the Colorado River and camp out for one night, cook over a fire, sleep on Mother Earth, take in the star. How do we convince them to embrace all those things without pushing too hard?
My biggest thing, honestly, is asking a lot of people of like why they do it, right? And then you see just the reactions on their face, and you're like, all right, clearly there's something to this. I gotta figure out what it is. And a lot of times, I'm always showing people videos or talking about stories of the people that I've met. Because a lot of times, even for myself, I went in, why would I do this? This is scary. This is crazy, right? But changing that question, right? Instead of focusing on, oh, this is scary, but seeing it as I could learn something. I learn either I don't like this, I'm not good at it, or I learn that I am really good at it. And again, it's the people. It's the people that make it. So honestly, I know people talk about like super expensive. People can kind of like close the door, kind of like that gatekeeping. But honestly, in all the outdoors and rafting itself, they want you out there. They want you to experience the good time. So as long as you just have that little bit of interest and you'll ask the questions of like, yo, what's training like? They'll tell you, and they'll tell you the truth. That's the thing. You won't find us lying out there because it's all built on that trust.
Yeah. And I think that's the reason why I wanted to bring you on this show on changing the narrative segment was to identify someone who does this. You mentioned about like talk to someone who's doing it to get their thoughts. Like,
Hmm.
how do they like it? And I know that you absolutely love it. I love it, right? And there's so much more for me to grow in it and learn from it. And that was why I came to you. It was like, I want to do a river rafting trip for the Who's Helping You Heal movement. I really believe going outside to heal inside goes hand in hand with river rafting and camping out and everything we spoke about from the spiritual pieces, from the ups and downs of the water, and even I would say even the moments of like the flotation pieces or the floating pieces where you're just kind of in still water. And you kind of look around the boat and everybody's just in a reflective space. We're almost loud, but not talking.
Mhm. Yep.
right? It's hard to explain, right? So, in saying that, for the change in the narrative, I want to give Sam a big up. I'm gonna give him another one of those claps for coming through and blessing us with the gems about river rafting. I think there's so many ways that you can get put onto it. Obviously, for me, it took me to come to Colorado to really discover it. I wasn't, I didn't find those resources in the Midwest for myself for it, but I'll be honest, I wasn't really looking for it in the Midwest. It wasn't until I came out here uh, to the beautiful mountains of Colorado that I was like, hey, oh, there's this. Let's do that, right? And I think the beauty of that is that now I am a person who wants to put people onto that, right? Just like you are, and that is the cultivation of putting people onto this sport, even if they try it once. Like you said, if they don't like it, hey, then it's not your jam, right? It's not your thing to do. But if you do like it and you fall in love with it, there's so many benefits, right? And we didn't talk a lot about the benefits of like, the physical benefits you get, right? Because I know I felt like I lost 10 pounds
Oh,
just doing some paddling, right? But there's so much mental benefit, which we kind of talked about with the connection of the water and the sounds and things like that. But I guess to, your final thoughts, we're at our final thoughts space here, Sam. And I want to give you the final thoughts just about river rafting. And if you want to base it on your own personal experience, cool. If you want to base it on recommendation and how to get someone started, cool. Whichever way you want to take it, but I'll give you the mic for the final thoughts here.
I mean, my final thoughts on it is whether you want to get into that boat or not, even just stepping by the water, listening to the rapids, seeing these rapids, watching other people go through this, and then just like you were saying, there's hoots and hollers, right? You see why, but again, it only lasts for a few seconds, so you really soak in those seconds. So again, whether you want to get into that boat or not, go just to the creek, go be by the water. All right, that's my biggest thing. I'll go out there. Maybe I'll bring my throw bag in case someone needs some help, but I just go sit there, listen to the roar of it, knowing what it's like when I'm in it and appreciating when I'm on the outside, just like, all right, I'll be back one day for this one, or this is what I've been through and just cherishing those moments.
That's
Again,
right.
watching people go through is it's just as much fun watching people go through and having a good time as being the one guiding through that scary, scary little rapid.
Well, no, I appreciate that, Sam. Thank you for, trend setting. As much as I know you were nervous about your course and you didn't pass it in the first round, like, we proud of you. Like, you doing it. You way beyond where a lot of our people are, right? In performing and doing. So big ups to you. I look forward to our trip in August. Sam is going to be back next week for next Monday's segment. Same thing, changing the narrative, but this time we're bringing him back to talk about snowboarding. I am alien to it, so he's gonna give us some gems on why he loves it, maybe how we can start with it and get down with it. But you know what this segment is about? It's about changing the narrative about the things that we do or don't do. We want to put people on to these things. And it's Monday, and today it's all about motivation. So take your time this week. Give yourself grace, taking your self-care moments. We'll be back on Wednesday for our mental health minute, and I am going to be beginning a different kind of segment for men's health. So come check us out on Wednesday. But beyond that, you know what my last words are. Who's helping you heal, y'all? Peace.